Hello Malaysia, hello world. Apa khabar?
Apa khabar?
Welcome back to our ECM talk with topic for today, LGBT, Taboo or Avoidance. I'm Raja Shahrul, your host. Discrimination against the LGBT community is nothing new. In fact, it is so widely accepted that even stoning them to death is lauded, like in Brunei and Indonesia. Malaysia has not yet gone that far, but it is clear that the level of tolerance towards the LGBT community in the country still holds. The Malaysia LGBT activist response to the United Nations Human Rights Council (UNHRC) in Geneva affirms that the LGBT individuals deserve equal rights as citizens. I have here with me to further chat on this controversial subject matter Professor Azrin Arifin, Deputy Vice-Chancellor from a private institution in Selangor. Welcome back to ECM Talk, Professor, and good to see you again. Apa khabar?
Khabar baik, YM. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session today.
Good.
And I think we are still pretty much in the MCO now.
Yes. Sorry about my observation, Prof. I noticed that green shirt you're wearing and also that beard you're keeping. Anything to say on this, Prof?
Well, you know, a dear friend just told me that the energy color for Friday is green. I was trying to find a plain green shirt, but I couldn't find one. So
that's the closest you could get.
It's actually just to boost my morale and to make me able to speak better.
Fantastic.
And the beard, blame it on MCO.
Good. Okay, Prof. Let me begin with my first question to you, sir. The phrase LGBT revealed how people often had fears or negative expectations. In your view, why people are so afraid of addressing this issue?
Well, YM, it's okay to call you YM, yeah? It's young.
Please,
yeah.
sir, please, yes.
I should actually begin by saying Assalamu alaikum, salam everyone, and good day. Yeah, the topic is kind of very controversial and it can be sensitive, but let's try to approach it from a very objective point of view. And as you've mentioned, people have fears about the topic itself. Talking about it has its own taboo, and it brings the whole aura of negativity into the discussion.
Precisely.
Let me just get to my mobile. LGBT is actually a spectrum. Let me just get to the right picture. Lesbians, gays, bisexuals, transsexuals. And there's a lot more to it, you know. There's also queer, intersex, and asexual. And the list goes on and on.
Right.
It's a spectrum.
Right.
If I may, transsexuals can't hide and are open to 24/7 discrimination. This is from the internet.
Right.
Gays and lesbians can hide, but can they hide who they love? The topic of love.
Your
Bisexuals,
favorite topic, that one, Prof?
Well, no, we can tackle that in another session. But for today, bisexuals, curious, and they are much misunderstood.
Yes.
Intersex is treated as abnormal and has the least right. Queer, gender, non-conforming would be the last group. So, you know, the point I'm trying to make is that it's a spectrum. And you know, it's very uncomfortable when you talk about these things because partly, and I think mainly in our country, the religion part, you know.
Yeah.
The Malay Muslim world. Now, I'm not going to transgress into a topic which I'm not familiar with or which I'm not an authority in, but I think there's a lot of this feeling that you might get, it's called tergelincir akidah. If you talk about it too liberally, and if you tend to justify and provide clarifications just based on your own thinking. So, with that kind of background, I think we have to be very, very careful here that the issue of religion is a non-compromise topic. So we're not saying anything against religion, Islam, or for that matter, any other religion.
Right.
But we are trying to provide, or I am trying to provide, a very objective view of the topic, because the other bit about the negative feeling that we get is because there is always this sexual connotation when you talk about LGBT. These are naughty people. That's what people say, which is not true, actually, which is not true. And I can remember my younger days. I was working as a junior lecturer in UKM, Chow Kit Road branch, they call it. It's actually Hospital Kuala Lumpur. This memories still come to me. Lorong Haji type, that kind of area. And then I was just a young man then, and it's actually something that was negative then. But I've learned a lot since then, and LGBT does not come in a package with sexual promiscuity. That's a point. And the other thing about the negative feeling that we get is because of the HIV stigma.
Yeah.
These are facts, yeah, YM.
Yes.
I was listening to Professor Adiba,
Right.
Dean of Medicine at one point. I think she still is.
Yeah.
And she heads the HIV committee in Asia. And she was saying that the LGBT community has always been associated with HIV, and which in fact started off because there were more HIV sufferers amongst men who were having sex with men. Sorry, I've got to use that word. But in her studies and in her opinion, it actually started off with amphetamine overuse. So, I mean, there is always a drug issue. There's always the fact that people are LGBT, but the stigma that LGBT, you are HIV, is kind of inaccurate in her opinion, and also I think that's becoming quite objective now. The issue of drug has been kind of addressed quite well, but LGBT has been a stigma ever since. So it's again a long answer to a short question, but the real fear is religion, and people don't want to talk about it because you don't want to be to go into controversy by so-called engaging in, this is not my word yet, it's been said, a deviant lifestyle, which is not a fair statement.
Right.
It's against the flow. And also, can I just, before I end this part of the question, a quote which I picked up from Professor Adiba Kamal Zaman. So, and this should be taken in context, yeah? She said, quote and unquote, yeah, and unfortunately the respect for human life and dignity and compassion, that's very much part of Islam, gets drowned out by the negativity towards LGBT people. It's a problem, not just in Islam, but in other religions too. So there you go. The
Right.
issue of religion, and people become very uncomfortable talking about it for the fear of talking the wrong things against religion.
Right.
There you go, sir.
Thank you. Now, my next question, Prof. Do you think this issue should be openly discussed or addressed, and why? Probing you, Prof.
You got the right person here.
Absolutely.
I was wondering why. I was chosen to talk about this topic.
Yes.
I'm a professor of optometry. It's very far from this area, but anyway.
Anyway, yes.
I think personally, I would probably be able to tell you a bit more because of my experience, my travels, and also from my conversation with different LGBT people, community.
Yeah.
But let me just tell you a short story. I attended high school in Australia in the early 80s. Okay, and I was I was just a young boy, 17 at the time. Being thrown into the deep end, attending high school in Sydney, and I realized that, there were gay people then. And it was quite a shock for me. I had a cultural shock. But that actually was a good beginning, because I began to realize that, there is a spectrum of people around. It's not just, black and white. And coming back to KL in the mid-80s, after, finishing my studies in Australia, I was, again, hailing from a small town in Kelantan, living in KL at the time, the gay bars I saw. So again, that made me realize, oh God, this is happening. And luckily, because of my Australian experience, I wasn't too shocked.
Yeah.
And spending time in the UK in my early adult years, in my adult years after that, made me realize that this is something that we need to understand. And the experience, again, a personal one, in a gay bar. I didn't actually went to a gay bar. I was in a gay bar in New York
I was about
at
to
one
ask that
point.
question. Yes.
Made me realize that this is something which should be talked about openly. So there you go, some background. I'm reminiscing again. God, it's just that age.
A lot of reminiscing there.
Oh God, yeah, it's just that age. I'm sorry about it in this digitalized world.
Yes.
This John Lennon song, Imagine.
Oh yeah.
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
Yes.
No hell above us. No hell below us. Above us only sky. Imagine all the people living for today. I'm reminiscing again.
Yeah. It'd be nice if you could sing to that tune, actually.
I wasn't singing. I was just saying out the phrases. Now working at university, I've never worked elsewhere. I think it's very appropriate because we can discuss these things.
Yeah.
The university culture is to discuss things which are not comfortable, and it's part of learning.
Correct.
And in fact, we had an intellectual discourse recently on this topic. So yes, we are discussing it openly, but within limits, and we got to actually, state categorically that you're not condoning it, nor are we oppressing the discussion of it.
Yeah.
So recently we had a discussion on the law aspects of it, the religion aspect, and particularly, this is my passion, the issues that students face if they happen to be LGBT. The challenges that they were faced with, they are being faced with, and I think we've got quite a good discussion going, and it helps us at the student department, student affairs department, to tide students over very difficult patches in the journey of education.
Right. But do you find them open when the subject was discussed?
I found them to be extremely open because I was moderating it, and people were asking questions in the chat box, and some of the questions I dared not answer because they were so obvious. We can come to talk about what the real problems that they face later on, but they were as honest as it can be, because they're facing these problems. And also people who are not LGBT also wanted to know what LGBT people are going through.
Right. Interesting. My next question, Prof. Finding the right path for the LGBT people or respecting their rights. What's your take on this, sir?
This is the most difficult question I've ever had to answer in my life.
Okay.
The right path is so subjective. Respecting people's right can be offensive to certain people, and my take on it, a very difficult one. Again, I think you got to bear in mind religion is a no compromise issue, and if it says very clearly in religion you can't do certain things, you can't rationalize it.
Yes.
Being a Muslim.
Right.
But this is science. LGBT is innate. It's not something that you make up. Something that you wish to be tomorrow, and you wish not to be the next day.
Right.
But I do believe, deep inside of me, I believe that there's some environmental factor as well, which comes into play.
Yeah.
let me reminisce again. I went to a boys' school. I went to the Malay College in Kuala Kangsar, the so-called premium school.
Yeah.
And you know what? They were all boys.
Yeah.
We didn't turn out to be, yeah. But I can tell you, in the 5 years I was in MCKK,
Right.
Feelings could develop between boys. So that's the environment. Even though, we've come out of MCKK. We came out of MCKK many years ago, and they were, of course, LGBT. But I wouldn't want to vouch for that. But it means that the environment at the time, this short environment, could actually change. After a certain period of time.
Yeah.
There's a concept called sexual fluidity, even amongst LGBT. Okay, so I think it is controversial. So defining the right path is difficult, but let me just relate to you our experience in student affairs, the counselling of students who are LGBT. There happen to be more men who, more male students who would come to us to talk about their problems, and the women are a bit more reserved, lesbians. But because the men, the main problem is they get depressed, and I think I'm quite qualified to actually talk to them because I feel quite fatherly these days. I think I'm probably one of the oldest chaps in the university at the moment where I work in. So I think people would actually come and speak to me about certain things which they find uncomfortable to talk to their peers. What do? I try to understand their plight, and I tend to tell them that, tell me what your problems are. And the problem seems to be, the issue of loneliness. So they actually fall in love. YM, have you been in love yourself?
Well, I've been in and out of it and in it again.
That's too fluid.
Yes.
It's that special tingling feeling, that flutter in your heart and that missing someone feeling.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yes.
LGBT as well, I like to do this. Have you watched Pride and Prejudice?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah,
I've even read the book.
That Jane Austen film.
Yes.
When Mr. Darcy said to Elizabeth Bennet, "You have bewitched me, body and soul, and I love, and I love you, and wished from this day forth never to be parted from you."
Wow.
It is something which is experienced by LGBT, and they find it very difficult because they'll be seen to be very, very odd holding hands amongst men. It's difficult. It's a difficult position, isn't it?
Yeah.
What Shakespeare said, love is a wonderful, terrible thing, isn't it?
Oh wow, Shakespeare's in it as well now. Yes.
And in Romeo and Juliet, love is a smoke and is made with fume of sighs.
Wow, Romeo and Juliet now. Yes.
And love is a child that longs for everything it can come by. The reason why I'm saying that is because this is the point that I'm trying to make. Bromance happens among students, brotherly romance, and to me, I think it's platonic. It's non-sexual. It's the love for the same gender, and it happens, and it can be a very difficult phase in the life of students. Era Fazira said, "Soalnya hati sukar dimengerti. Apa yang terjadi di luar kawalan diri."
Wow.
But the problem is when sex comes into the equation, and often after speaking to psychologists, according to them, bromance eventually has that sexual thing at the end as well. And this is unfortunate because in Islam it becomes di luar tabi'i.
Yeah.
So
it still goes back to religion. Yeah. Bro? Yeah.
So there you go. The trouble with love is it can tear you up inside. It can make your heart believe a lie. It is stronger than your pride.
Wow.
I'm beginning to sound like Dr. Love, but I'm not. It's just plain Dr. Azrin, just getting carried away.
Yes.
Please don't be judgmental, because bisexuals can end up being more definite as well. Because later expressions can happen. Even though at university you are not So in the later part of your life, you find that people who've been married with kids and suddenly say, look, I'm giving up. I'm actually not what you think I am.
Oh gosh.
There you go. It's called sexual fluidity. You can suppress it
Interesting.
and
Prof.
live a full life of lie. Did I overstate certain things?
I want to hear more actually.
You
but
want to
since
hear more?
time is not with us. Yes, yeah. My last question to you, Prof. Who or which party should be responsible in addressing this issue? Is it the government, or should we start from home, family, or school?
Again, YM, this is a matter of opinion, but I think the government can do its part in the right doses, of course, and they've got to be very careful as well, because banyak hati yang nak kena jaga. You know, they got to maintain decorum while sticking to facts. But I think, as far as the government is concerned, there is no compromise when it comes to religion as well. What I can tell you, in respect of the government, I think the law is pretty clear about this. Muslims are governed by the Sharia law and also the civil law.
Right.
And you know, within each law, this is coming from an expert. Being an LGBT does not make you in violation of any of the laws, but your action, your cross-dressing and having sex with the same gender, that is against the law. But you know, we always tell students, you know, you have to be what you are. But within the law, if you're a Muslim, you can't do this. And even if you're not a Muslim, it comes under penal code. I mean, kanun in the course, it's just,
It's true.
you know, it's just in the penal code. Kanun keseksaan.
Yeah.
So there you go. And with respect to religion, I need to relate to you. This is the fact that we also obtained from the intellectual discourse. You know, a PhD thesis that was done, and they were looking at male participants who had affection for another male, Muslims, and they were in conflict, and they were referring it, or they're comparing it with data from the United States. You know, they found something very interesting, that in Malaysia, these LGBT males were not stressed out at all, because in the US, they have religion and they have the freedom outside.
Right.
Whereas here, they have the tendency, and there is no real freedom outside to go and, you know, and celebrate the fact that you love another man. You can't do that, because that would be in contradiction with the law. The fact that they're so used to it, it makes them more calm. That's good, isn't it? So I always thought that, you know, the conflict was real. The conflict has been tamed down, and it's being suppressed. So that's good, I think, when it comes to the fact that people are just being what they are, and the fact that they are used to the situation outside, that they can't go and celebrate it. It just has calmed them down. It has just calmed them down.
Right.
The other thing which the government can play a role, you know, this is something which we just read in the papers, that the violence against, you know, sometimes, you know, it's very disconcerting to read about these things. My take on that would be, you know, if it's wrong in the law, it should be applied equally for both parties. I mean, regardless. But sometimes, you know, when people start to take law into their own hands and start vilifying and also punishing people because of their LGBT tendency, that's quite disturbing, really. I mean, it's not within the Sharia law, and it's not within the civil law. Yes.
Well, I suppose, Prof, basically what needs to be more transparent is in terms of treating the law equal to that sense, isn't it, Prof? I mean, what difference does it make for LGBT or a normal person committing the same heinous crime? What do you think, Prof?
My point exactly. You know, the punishment to be meted out should be the same for both parties.
Correct.
And,
yes.
Regardless.
There shouldn't be a double standard in terms of with those that falls under LGBT, isn't it?
Yeah, but what's disturbing is sometimes people take the law into their own hands and and ugly things can happen. So I think the government is can play a role there.
Yeah.
But by the way, with respect to the government as well, because this is probably in association what happens on TV and all. Netflix recently LGBT sex scenes have become more prominent, and a lot of parents don't like it, and they write about this in the social media. I find that quite odd because it should also apply to the non-LGBT sex scenes. So and people are not comfortable about it.
Right.
I mean, should be not comfortable with both.
Yeah.
I can relate to you. I'm reminiscing again. When I was slightly younger, I was spending a sabbatical in London, and I was watching Basic Instinct, Sharon Stone.
Oh my God.
And the scene was very, very explicit.
Yes.
And I was staying in a house with some girls. I was married then. That's fine. I mean, but they were.
Doesn't matter.
They were not embarrassed. I was.
Yeah.
So I thought, if people should be embarrassed, should be for both kind of scenes. So there you go. And my children, they're all grown up now. I always get embarrassed when I watch Netflix with my daughter around. I mean, she's in her 20s, but she would always say, "You're a cool dad. You shouldn't be embarrassed." Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I agree with her.
That's fine. Yeah. So
Yeah,
there you go.
yeah.
I think as far as and it should start at school, by the way.
Right.
You didn't ask me this question, but can I just say something, because this is very important. It comes from Dr. Adiba again. Doctors. Some doctors she found had difficulty examining LGBT individuals, and she despises it. She was saying that you should apply the same standard to all people. So it's something that she brought up in many of the meetings. Don't be judgmental, she always says that, and at university we are trying to understand how people feel and how they go through life, with no compromise in religion, of course.
Yeah.
If it's a Muslim, if he or she is a Muslim, then we would actually go the Muslim way, the advisory role, but lending a sympathetic ear makes a lot of difference, actually.
It does, yeah. Okay, Prof, is there anything else you may like to add other than the questions that we have raised?
Well, I've played all my cards, and that's what you've done too.
Okay,
Nothing
good.
more to say, no more ace to play.
Well said. Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof, for sharing with us your views and thoughts on this topic. The plight of LGBT has not been as favorable as we like it to. There has never been widespread violence against them, with the authorities who prefer to re-educate the LGBT in voluntary classes, whole forums, and talks. Despite whatever have been said by local activists, they have to understand that Malaysia is a Muslim majority country, and as such, this adamantly against LGBT rights unless reforms take place. Thankfully, Malaysia is slowly moving in the right direction. Ban Ki-moon, the 8th Secretary General at the United Nations, once said, however, many safe places for the LGBT community still survive in Malaysia. Small and rightly protective, there are online forums, websites, blogs, and private events that allow this community to express themselves without fear. Global history points out that the rejection of LGBT is likely to change with time. In the meantime, the journey for LGBT Malaysians is still an evolving one. Once again, thank you, Prof, for your insights on this topic.
You're most welcome.
We really hope to see you again. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Edu Channel Malaysia. Until we meet again in our next program, take care and stay safe, everyone. God the Almighty jaga kita. Jumpa lagi. Bye. Hello Malaysia, hello world. Apa khabar? ECM team and I take this opportunity to wish all our Chinese friends and colleagues, Gong Xi Fa Chai. Have a great new year, take care and have fun. Until we meet again, jumpa lagi. Bye.